I politely refused to sign a petition against a family who had just moved in. My neighbor whispered, "You'll regret it." Days later, my property was tagged, my car was vandalized, and anonymous complaints were sent to Child Protective Services. But a recorded phone call between two neighbors revealed who started it all. I've lived in Tigard, Oregon for most of my adult life. Quiet little suburb outside Portland, good schools, not much trouble. I bought my house 12 years ago after my divorce. Raised my son there, kept to myself mostly, just trying to live a peaceful life. I work maintenance at the local school district. It's honest work. I know almost everyone on my street by face, if not by name. It started when the Ramirez family moved in across the cul-de-sac. Young couple, 3 kids. He's a truck driver, she works from home. Didn't make much noise, didn't throw parties, just regular people trying to settle in. A week after they moved in, I got a knock on my door. It was Dana, my next-door neighbor. She's one of those self-appointed HOA watchdog types, even though we're not part of an official HOA. She handed me a paper and said, "We're gathering signatures. They're bringing down the neighborhood, too many cars, loud kids, suspicious people coming and going. We're going to ask the city to investigate." I looked at the paper. It was a petition to have the Ramirez family investigated for nuisance behavior and excess occupancy. It felt wrong. I told her, "I'm not comfortable signing this. They just got here." Dana gave me this sharp look, like I'd insulted her personally. Then she leaned in, like she was sharing a secret, and whispered, "You'll regret it." I closed the door. Didn't think much of it. But within days, things started happening. First, someone tagged my garage door with spray paint. Just a crude drawing, but it felt deliberate. Then my truck got keyed, deep, ugly scratches along the driver's side. A week later, I got a visit from Child Protective Services. Someone had reported me for yelling at children and leaving them unsupervised. My son's 16. He plays guitar in the basement and barely leaves the house. The caseworker seemed embarrassed to be there. I tried to stay calm. Thought maybe it was coincidence, maybe just bad luck. But I started noticing the way neighbors would stop talking when I walked by. Dana, especially, always had someone on her porch, whispering and watching. Then I got a call from the Ramirez woman, Elena. She sounded shaken. She asked if I had a minute to talk. I walked over. She was crying, holding her phone. She said, "I didn't know who else to show this to, but I think it might help you too." She played me a voicemail. It was a butt dial, apparently Dana's voice, clear as day, talking to another neighbor, Teresa. They were laughing about scaring the siding off that nosy bastard next door and letting CPS deal with that creepy loner. They mentioned the Ramirez family too, how people like that don't belong here. I stood there in their living room, heart pounding. My hands were shaking. I'd been targeted for what? For refusing to join their little suburban lynch mob? That's when I decided I wasn't just going to take this. I was going to find a way to expose them. I've lived in Tigard, Oregon since 2011. It's a quiet suburb outside of Portland. Most people here work, raise their kids, mow their lawns. Nothing flashy, just a regular place. After my divorce, I bought a small 2-bedroom house on a cul-de-sac with my son. He was 4 when we moved in. Now he's 16. It hasn't been easy, but I've done my best to keep things stable for him. I'm not the type who makes friends easily. I show up to block parties. I say hello, but I keep my head down. My job keeps me busy. I do maintenance for the local school district. It's not glamorous, but I've got benefits, steady hours, and it lets me be home at night. Over the years, I've watched neighbors come and go. People move in, settle down, sell, or divorce. But there's one neighbor, Dana, who's been here longer than me. She lives 3 doors down and acts like she owns the whole street. You know the type. She always has something to say about someone's lawn or someone's car. Real concerned citizen vibes. I always kept my distance. Things started getting weird after the Ramirez family moved in. They bought the house directly across from me. Young couple Elena and Carlos and their 3 kids. He drives trucks for a living, and she works remote from home. First time I saw them, Carlos was unloading furniture while the kids ran around in the yard. Elena smiled and waved at me. They seemed normal. Happy, even. Within days, Dana was making the rounds with a clipboard. She knocked on my door and handed me a paper without even saying hello. It was a petition, something about too many cars, excessive noise, and possible code violations. She said, "We're trying to protect property values before it gets out of control." I looked at the paper. It named the Ramirez family directly. I asked her what they'd done. She gave a vague answer, just things I've noticed. You'll see. I handed the paper back and said, I'm not signing anything like that. They just moved in. Dana's face changed. Her smile vanished, and her tone went cold. Suit yourself, she said, and then, quieter, almost under her breath, you'll regret it. I didn't think much of it. I thought she was just bitter because I didn't jump on her gossip train. But 3 days later, I woke up and found my garage door tagged with spray paint. It wasn't gang-related, just crude, angry scribbles. Red paint, middle finger drawn across the panels. I scrubbed it off, chalked it up to random vandalism. Then, a week later, my truck was keyed. Deep gashes across the driver's side. Thousands of dollars in damage. No note. No explanation. I filed a police report, but the officer didn't seem too hopeful. Could be kids, he said. Keep an eye out. The next hit came out of nowhere. I was cooking dinner when there was a knock on the door. A woman from Child Protective Services stood there, badge out. Someone had filed an anonymous complaint, said I yelled at my son, left him alone for hours, that they heard disturbing sounds. I let her in, showed her my kitchen, my son's room, the fridge stocked with food, the clean laundry. She asked questions. I answered them calmly. My son came upstairs and looked surprised. She asked him a few things too. After 15 minutes, she gave me a card and said she didn't see any cause for concern, but they were required to follow up. That night, I didn't sleep. My son sat on the couch with me, quiet. Did someone actually think you were abusing me? He asked. I told him no. I told him someone was lying. Someone who wanted to mess with me. And I knew who it was. I started noticing things after that. Neighbors who used to wave stopped. One woman crossed the street to avoid me. Another man who'd borrowed my ladder last summer pretended not to hear me say hello. It was like a fog had settled over the whole block, and I was the outsider. Then, a week later, I got a call from Elena Ramirez. She sounded nervous. She said, I'm sorry to bother you, but could you come over for a minute? When I stepped inside their house, she looked pale. She showed me her phone. Someone left this on my voicemail, she said. I think they butt-dialed me. She played the message. It was Dana's voice, clear, gossipy, and cruel. She thinks he's too good to sign? Let's see how he likes it when CPS shows up at his door, Dana said. Another voice, Teresa, I think, laughed and said, what about the spray paint? Oh, that was just a warning, Dana said. Wait until his boss hears he's under investigation. I stood there stunned. They admitted it. They were laughing about it. Planning more. My stomach turned. I looked at Elena and said, Can you send that to me? She nodded. I just wanted someone to know. And right then, I made a decision. I wasn't going to take this quietly. Not anymore. After I got the voicemail recording from Elena, I sat in my kitchen for over an hour just listening to it on repeat. Every time I heard Dana's voice mocking me, laughing about sending CPS to my house, it lit a fire in my chest. I've never been the revenge type. I keep to myself. I don't stir the pot. But this crossed a line. I made a copy of the voicemail and backed it up in 3 places on my phone, my laptop, and a USB drive I hid in my toolbox. I wasn't about to let that piece of evidence slip away. The next morning, I took a personal day and drove straight to the police station. I asked to speak with someone about harassment and vandalism. The officer who took my statement didn't seem very interested at first until I played the recording. His eyebrows went up. Do you have proof they did the tagging and keying? He asked. No, I said. But they admitted to calling CPS as retaliation. That's abuse of a state agency. He wrote a few things down and said someone would follow up. But I could tell he wasn't in a hurry. Still, I wasn't done. I called the school district HR department and asked to file a report. Dana's friend Teresa worked part-time as a lunch monitor at one of our middle schools. In the recording, she joked about messing with that loner freak's job. That's workplace harassment. HR told me they'd launch an internal review. Meanwhile, the Ramirez family was still catching heat. Dana and her little circle kept harassing them in subtle ways, complaints about trash bins left out, unsafe play because their kids used sidewalk chalk. One day, Carlos came home to find a fake code violation notice taped to his door. The city hadn't issued it. It was typed up to look real, but it was fake. I told him to report it. He did. Nothing came of it. So I started documenting everything. I installed a Ring camera and motion sensor lights. Every whisper, every side eye at the mailbox, I wrote it down. I even caught Dana walking her dog across my yard one morning and letting it crap near my truck without picking it up. I sent that video to the city. Petty? Maybe. But I was done playing nice. Then the twist came. One of Dana's allies, a woman named Marcy who lived 2 streets over, showed up at my house. She looked nervous. She said, "I think things have gone too far. I heard them talking about your son." That stopped me cold. She said Dana and Teresa were now trying to spread rumors that my son was acting out and possibly on drugs. Total lies. But in a town like ours, that kind of gossip sticks. "I didn't sign the petition," Marcy said. "But they're saying anyone who defends you is part of the problem." I thanked her. And then I asked if she'd be willing to put any of that in writing. She paused. "I'll think about it." The next day, I got a warning at work. An anonymous email had been sent to my supervisor claiming I was under investigation for child abuse and creating a hostile environment. Luckily, I'd already briefed HR. They knew what was going on. Still, the email shook me. These people weren't just trying to ruin my reputation. They wanted to destroy my life. And they were willing to lie, to cheat, to break the law to do it. It wasn't about the Ramirez family anymore. It was about control. Dana didn't like that I said no. And now she was willing to burn down the whole street just to prove she was right. But she had no idea what I was planning next. About a week after Marcy came forward, something unexpected happened. I got a letter in the mail, an official letter from the Oregon Department of Human Services. It wasn't about my son. It was about me. It said I was being investigated for retaliation and harassment against community members following a child services complaint. I read the letter 3 times, not understanding. Then it hit me. Dana had flipped the script. She must have gotten wind that I went to the police and HR. Now she was painting me as the aggressor, saying I was harassing her. I was being accused of retaliating, when all I'd done was try to protect my son, my job, and my home. I called the number listed. The investigator assigned to the case was polite but firm. He said someone had submitted multiple documents and community witness statements claiming I was monitoring neighbors, threatening emails, and illegal surveillance. "They're referring to my security camera," I said. "That's part of it," he replied. "There are also emails and printed screenshots included." I asked him to read me one. It was a fake. A message supposedly from me, saying something like, "You people messed with the wrong guy. I know where you live." I never wrote that. I never sent it. Someone had fabricated emails. I realized they weren't just trying to ruin my name. They were creating evidence, manufacturing a paper trail to make it look like I was dangerous. That night, I barely slept. I sat in the dark and watched hours of old security footage, just in case. And then the next twist came. Elena texted me around 2 a.m. It just said, "You need to see this. Come by tomorrow, please." When I showed up at her house, she was waiting with a flash drive and a shaky smile. "My cousin works in IT," she said. I told him what was happening. He took my voicemail, cleaned up the audio, and pulled metadata. The call didn't just come from Dana's number. It was recorded while she was on a 3-way call. That's when it hit me. Teresa hadn't just been chatting with Dana. They'd been planning this in a group. "There's another voice," Elena said. "We isolated it. It's Marcy." I felt my stomach drop. Marcy, the woman who showed up crying at my door, claiming to be on my side, had been in on it the whole time. She was playing both sides. She'd come to me acting scared, telling me they were going after my son. But she was one of the people who helped record the call. That's why she warned me. She knew the truth might come out. And suddenly, everything made sense. The fake emails. The anonymous tip to my boss. The false DHS complaint. Marcy had access to just enough personal info to help Dana fabricate it all. That's when I stopped collecting evidence and started building a case.